Hi, Scott. Very happy to have you on to share knowledge about a very specific element in personal branding today.
It's wonderful to be here, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
You know what triggered today's conversation? I'm going to show you a picture. I cannot care less about riding wave with the Duke of Sussex. And we're not here to gossip about the royal family today. So I'm going to show you another picture. And I'm going to ask the audience a question, a test question. You know, what commonalities do those books have? Scott, you know the answer, but we're going to pause for 5 seconds.
There are a few good answers to that question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you go ahead or me?
Yeah, so there are a few. Obviously, they are all memoirs, biographical memoirs. That's something that they all have in common. They are all very likely New York Times bestsellers now. I know that doesn't say that on the cover of Spare, but I expect that's probably the case now, even though it just came out. They are all excellent books. I've not read Spare yet. I've read Open, I've read Shoe Dog, and they are incredible stories and really well written. And then the last thing, and I think this is the one that you're most interested in, is that they've all been ghostwritten.
Yes. So that's actually what, fascinated me. And I was thinking, who is better to share that knowledge with us than you, Scott, an executive publisher and, international best-selling author of a book yourself. So, and the ghostwriter behind those 3 books, is J.R. Moringer. I hope I pronounced his last name correct, because he is a kind of a celebrity himself. And when I was looking at the cover of Spare and Open, I was like, whoa, just the similarities of those 2 books. The name of the author, right? Not the ghostwriter, and then 1 word of the title. So I was like, I was really curious. Then I found out, okay, they have the same ghostwriter. Then I thought, oh, J.R. wrote the co-founder of Nike's memoir as well. So that's very interesting. And so I'm really happy to have you here to share the knowledge of publishing and also publishing books, and writing books for entrepreneurs and business owners, because that's part of your personal brand's kind of components, and also a journey that you can, take on to build your personal brand. So I before we start, I just wanted to introduce Scott, because, we've known each other for, I can't remember, 18 years or 15 years. And you've always been modest. And so I'm going to introduce you. And Scott has a track record of, over 25 years of your career. So when we first met, you were a senior manager of digital at Chorus Entertainment. Then you moved on to be a consultant and project leader, later on project leader at Boston Consulting Group. And then, various VP roles at Rogers Media. I think in the capacity of NHL integration, NHL Game Center, strategy, digital product, and innovation. I think as Canadians, we know that, to some other cultures, hockey might not be a big deal, but to Canadians, hockey is a big deal. So I wanted to say that, NHL Game Center and NHL integration, that's so very impressive of your track record in your career. And right, and currently, and I share your passion of, helping business owners thrive and grow. So help us understanding what ghostwriting is and who can be a ghostwriter.
Sure. Yeah, well, let's start with the first question, that of what is ghostwriting? And, quite simply, ghostwriting is when there is a distinction between the author and the writer. And so the author is the person, the authority, right? The person who brings the stories and the expertise, the ideas to the table. They're the one that ultimately has their name on the front of the book or the byline of the article or whatever the format is. Whereas the ghostwriter is the person who's the expert in communication and turning those ideas and stories and anecdotes into something that is interesting to read, and that it's formatted for whatever the output is. And so very specifically in the case of the books that we just looked at, the author is very much Harry, Andre, right, and Phil. They are genuinely the authors because it's their stories that are coming through. But J.R. Moringer is the ghostwriter. And so the ghostwriter is the person with the technical and artistic capabilities to turn those stories into something that's engaging. And so, a lot of people wonder, is using a ghostwriter, is that unethical somehow? Absolutely not, right? It's no different.
As an outsider, that's actually my first question. I'm like, okay, I cannot write and I hire somebody else to write for me. Is that right?
Yeah, and to me, it very much comes down to the how, right? So there are people out there where you can just give them a topic, they'll go off and write on that topic, and you don't have any. Similarly, there's a lot of hype right now around ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. You can give ChatGPT a topic and say, write me X number of words on this topic. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is what I like to call collaborative ghostwriting, where it's almost a journalistic endeavor, where the writer is almost a journalist trying to uncover what it is that the author is trying to communicate, extract the ideas, their genuine ideas from their head, and present that. And there's nothing at all unethical about that. That's not dissimilar from a movie director bringing together a cast and a crew to communicate a story, right? You don't see the director on the screen, right? The director's behind the screen bringing the ideas in. And I look at a ghostwriter very much the same way, where they're helping the author to communicate their ideas in the best possible way.
Well, thank you. That's very clear. Thank you for that clarification. I think sometimes, we ourselves, because there is a self-image that we view ourselves, and there is a self-image that, others see us. And a lot of us actually need help, for somebody else to kind of get our clarity out of our own system. So, that's kind of the process as well, right?
Yeah.
So
I think another good example would be, as entrepreneurs, we hire people to design our websites, for example, or code our websites.
Yeah.
And, there's never any concern that people are going to, think, what's this person doing? They didn't design their own website, or they didn't code their own website. Of course they didn't, because that's not what most people do. That's not their expertise. Our expertise is in whatever area we're an authority in, an expert in. That doesn't necessarily mean that writing is our expertise, and that's okay, right? The important thing is that we're bringing novel ideas on the topic that our book is about, and if we need some assistance turning that into a compelling read, well, that's the role of the ghostwriter.
That's wonderful. And in the case that we showcased, right? All of them are kind of like celebrities. So in our quote unquote normal life, like, who can be a ghostwriter? I'm not saying those writers are not outstanding, and I'm sure you have a crew or resources to help entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So in terms of who can do ghostwriting, it depends on the ultimate format, right? So there are a lot of people who are really good writers and can write content for short form, whether that's blog articles, newspaper articles, magazine articles, social media posts. And we as entrepreneurs can leverage that. We can use people who are just good communicators, good at turning ideas into written word and or scripts for audio or scripts for video, and that's perfectly fine. When it comes to longer form content, I think the field narrows quite a bit because ghostwriting for a book or writing in general for a book is quite a bit more specialized, right? The long form requires a lot more thinking in terms of the overall structure of the book and how you're taking the reader on a journey from the point that they're at when they start reading through to where you want them to be and the ideas that you want them to have by the time they've reached the end of the book. And so, I look for people who have experience writing long form book content. I would look for somebody who has experience in the particular genre, not specifically in the topic area, because a good ghostwriter can, the author is the expert in terms of the content, but there is a difference between ghostwriting fiction versus nonfiction, memoirs versus how-to books, and so on. So for somebody to be a good ghostwriter, they do have to have a level of experience around long-form content writing.
Yeah, and how to structure the story arc and take your readers along the journey. That's the expertise area. Another area I think that is you need to have a kind of personal connection to the person you write for, not only the audience but the author, right? In Harry's case, and I actually went back and watched the JR's kind of memoir movie, that the Tender Bar. So now I saw the the daddy issues, and also he dated a mixed kind of racial women in university. By the way, that movie was directed by George Clooney, and Ben Affleck was playing a leading role. So yeah, apologize, I'm dropping all the names.
Very good.
On the interview. Okay, so you touched on why do we need ghostwriters, and so next question is, I'm curious, when do we choose a ghostwriter? If I say, okay, I wanted, is it like I can't write myself, or how do I plan for it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I kind of think of there being three types of writers when it comes to really to the ability to get a complete manuscript written. So you've got the gung-ho writers who are just really excited to do it, right? They're reasonably good writers. They don't mind putting in the time, and they have the time to do it. So that's one type. The second type are the time-poor writers. So they may have the ability to write a manuscript, but they just can't seem to fathom how in the world they're going to find time to get 50,000 words written. Yeah. And then you also have the self-conscious writer, where they're happy to put in the time, but they're just self-conscious that they don't know how to write a book. Mm-hmm. And I think those last two are the two where a ghostwriter might be the solution. Mm-hmm. But I should say it's not the only solution. Mm-hmm. Certainly the benefits to using a ghostwriter are things like, it'll actually get done, right? So many people have a partially written manuscript on a hard drive somewhere. If you engage a ghostwriter, it's actually going to get written. It's going to get written faster. Just, ghostwriters, they've done it so many times that they can do it more quickly than most people can. And it requires less effort on your part, right? You'll still need to be involved because you need to convey the ideas out of your head to the writer. They'll set up interviews and help extract that out, but you have to put in the time for that, but not nearly as much time as it would take to actually write it yourself. Mm-hmm. That said, there are some downsides. It's costly, right? Much more costly than writing it yourself. Yeah. And the other thing that people don't often realize is in writing a book, you actually learn a lot yourself. Some of that is you learn about yourself, but when you're writing a book about your business and about your intellectual property and your approach to how you get great results for your client, you actually learn about things that you've taken for granted. And you end up putting structures in place that weren't there before. You make connections that you hadn't realized before. And so there is a risk that by abdicating that to a ghostwriter, you miss out on some of those learnings. which may be okay, but it is a bit of a downside. So there are two other things that I recommend that people can do in lieu of ghostwriting if they don't want to take that plunge. One is working with a great book coach. There are many book coaches out there with expertise in helping first-time authors get their manuscript written. And that ranges anywhere from, self-directed, digital courses through to group coaching, through to one-on-one coaching. And, we have a number of really excellent book coaches that we don't work with them directly, but we have a really good relationship with them. I refer people to them. They, handle people really, really well, particularly in the area of business owners, entrepreneurs who are writing their book for the first time.
I see.
And then
so you have all those information on your website that,
we don't, but I'm happy to share those names.
Yeah. No, that's fine. As long as, we have your name and your company's contact information that we can contact you. Okay.
Of course. And then the second thing, and this is one that a lot of people don't realize, is that good old-fashioned editing works wonders. And so, the manuscripts that we often get, the first draft manuscripts that we get from our authors, they're by no means perfect. And that's the point. That's perfectly normal, right? They're engaging us because we can help iterate with them and really create a diamond to pull that out of the rough, right? Take that lump of coal, which has so much potential in it, such great ideas. And through refining it, iterating on it, doing structural editing, copy editing, and ultimately proofreading, we're able to help them create and write their own manuscript, something that they never thought they'd be able to do, to a really, really high quality. So just because you don't have the expertise doesn't mean that you can't write an excellent manuscript for your book. So ghostwriting is definitely an option for those who are uncertain about how to approach it and who don't have the time, but it's not the only solution.
Yeah. Well, that's so wonderful. I'm really happy that you touch on the process, because at VOYO, actually one of our values is process over genius. So
excellent. I love that. I love that.
We're like, it's we actually treasure the first shitty draft,
Yes. It's so important.
It's so important. But along the journey, you learn stuff about yourself and you collaborate with others and you learn who you work well with. And that's how, entrepreneurship to us is about, right? So we enjoy the journey. Then along the way, we take others together who work, we work well with us. Yes. We are results oriented, but, and we don't want that kind of anxiety, blah, blah, blah. But that's how.
Yeah, at Grammar Factory, we have a maxim that's very similar to that. We say that iteration beats perfection, eats perfection for breakfast.
Yeah, that's so wonderful, because we're all tired of culture eats strategy for breakfast. So let's invent new words.
A lot of good breakfast meals.
Love it. So next question is, because you talk about, ghostwriters and how they can help you, but then how do I choose? Like, is there a list that you can match me with somebody, or I go, say, Scott, I like this person. So how does that, work?
Yeah. I would say the most important thing is to look for somebody who's done it before, right? You don't want somebody who, you don't want to hire somebody who's a good writer but has never written a book before, and who has never ghostwritten a book. And I make that distinction intentionally because, I've written a book, but I'm not a ghostwriter. Part of the expertise.
I was thinking maybe you can help me.
I can help you with many parts of it, but, and we have our editors.
Yeah, we have the digital experience, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And you being a consultant, and you kind of still are like, an executive kind of supporter, not to. That's right.
That's right. That's the role that I play, is really helping the author bring together the various pieces strategically so that the editorial enhances or connects with the strategy. Yeah. Our editorial team, they're really the experts around helping craft that editorial, including ghostwriting. And so what distinguishes them from me, right, as somebody who's written a book, is they are experts at making sure that the end result reflects the voice and tone of the author. And so they're a little bit like chameleons, where what comes out the other end of the process, should not be their voice and the tone that they have when they write. It should be the voice of the author, whether they're editing something that the author has written, or if they're ghostwriting something based on the content that the author brings to the table. That's really important, and that requires expertise. It requires experience. So experience is probably the most important thing. And then secondary, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, is that experience should be ideally in the genre that you're going to be writing in. And again, by that I don't mean, if you're writing a book about oral health care, right, like dentistry, it doesn't mean that the writer has to be a dentist or have experience writing a book about dentistry. But they should have experience writing books that are nonfiction, expertise driven, and that are, if your book is a sort of a how-to, right, how to take care of your teeth, they should have experience writing how-to books. If it's a more of a thought leadership book, here's why dental health should have a really high priority in society, then they should have experience writing in a thought leadership style of book. If it's more of a memoir, then they should have experience writing memoirs, because those different genres are quite different from one another, and that experience is important.
Yeah. Well, thank you for pointing out that, specifics for us. It's very similar in my line of work. We don't necessarily have to have like lots of experience in that industry or sector. That's the expertise from our clients. But we know kind of, in my line of work, we know how to create like new things and how to go to market, those kind of things, and how to do strategic planning, right, and execute on things. And there are techniques that we've repeated and kind of mastered over the years, so we can help entrepreneurs.
That's right. Yeah. It's
Cool.
the expertise that you bring to the table to layer onto their specific content area expertise. Absolutely.
Exactly. So that's very similar. So yeah, so thank you so much for sharing the knowledge with us. So where else can we go for resources, and do you have a step-by-step process, like how to get a book published?
Yeah, so there are a couple places that I'd probably direct people to. One is our website at Grammar Factory, and that's grammarfactory.com. Within the blog, so grammarfactory.com/blog, we have a lot of articles on various topics, some of them related to ghostwriting, some related to publishing generally, a lot related to writing. So that can be a great resource. My podcast, Entrepreneur to Author, the first 18 episodes or so are really a summary of my book by the same name, Entrepreneur to Author. So if you like listening, that could be a good format to read or to listen to. So look for Entrepreneur to Author wherever you get your podcasts. And then, of course, if you prefer to read, Entrepreneur to Author, the book is available wherever you buy your books from, including Amazon. Just search for Entrepreneur to Author. And I do cover specifically the topic of ghostwriting. I cover the topic of book coaches. One of the most excellent book coaches that I know of is actually one of the experts that I interviewed for the book, and her contact information is in the back of the book. So but certainly reach out to me as well directly. You can find me on LinkedIn, Scott A. MacMillan, and I'd be happy to connect there too.
Cool. Thank you so much, Scott.
You're very welcome, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. Till next time. Thank you. Bye.